I'm Garth Marenghi, author, dreamweaver, visionary, plus actor. You are about to enter the world of my imagination. You are entering my dark place.
In my effort to think of a video for Halloween this year, I figured instead of reviewing something bad like I did last time, it's about time I talked about something I love. And there are few shows out there that I love as much as Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. It really is the perfect show to watch on Halloween with your friends. It has everything you could ask for. It's deranged, hilariously absurd, and it has a spooky enough tone to be appropriate viewing this season.
Thanks, Rick, I was hysterical.
I've actually meant to make a video on this show for a long time because it is so underappreciated. I've even referenced it in videos a few times before.
Karate hands, he's like fucking Darkplace.
We need to contact every FBI agent on their team.
Bye.
I'm genuinely surprised that few people have heard of this show because it feels like the kind of thing that people would pass around to friends and watch in a group. And since nobody has really made a video on this show, I am doing my internet duty and explaining to you guys the wonders of this miniseries. Now, if I were to describe Darkplace in the most simple way possible, it still wouldn't really do the show justice. At face value, it's a show about hotshot doctor / paranormal expert Rick Douglas, who opens a portal to hell in his hospital and must now face the forces of evil while dealing with, well, kind of being a doctor, but not really. The thing is, that's just the facade the show is giving you. The real premise is that this is a fake show made by a fake Stephen King-esque horror author named Garth Marenghi. This show is basically the British horror version of Black Dynamite, where the real-life creators of the show are trying to make it as hammy as possible to make it look like an old, corny piece of media from a previous era.
So what happened between you and this Renwick customer?
However, what makes Darkplace different is that the supernatural hospital drama is only half of the show. The other half is commentary by the fictional cast of the show. The idea here is that this is basically a DVD commentary special edition retelling about a man who made a failed horror TV show in the 80s. And if this was just a spoof of 80s horror shows and only had the hospital scenes and none of the fake commentary, the show would still be pretty good. But this story within a story frames the characters in a way that adds another layer of storytelling and comedy to the whole production.
The actor who played that part was not happy. However, I had taken him aside that morning and explained to him what was going to happen.
The interview segments kind of just tell their own story. With every episode, Garth Marenghi is shown to be more and more egotistical, while also completely blind to reality.
I'm one of the few people you'll meet who've written more books than they've read.
Not to mention, one of the main characters isn't even in these segments because she's presumed dead, and it's implied that the other characters killed her. The framework of this show adds an extra layer of authenticity to make you really think that this was a real show, and that's crucial. Because the best thing about this show is that it is the pinnacle of 80s television satire.
I'll get him up.
The thing is, when I watch something like Kung Fury, I get the feeling that the creators are trying a little too hard, and the result isn't as funny as it could be. The charm of Darkplace is that the creators are actually really good at making the show look bad on purpose. The Darkplace facade features low-budget special effects, outrageous, incoherent plot lines that sometimes just end.
What I couldn't work out was how he'd managed to make another man pregnant. I guess we'd never know. So, just to restate, that is something we'll never know. You're not going to find out later.
Blatant technical errors, some of the most ridiculous lines of dialogue ever written for television.
I see the past, the present, and the future.
Tough gig.
Stop being sarcastic.
Maybe if everyone who'd ever been close to you had died, you'd be sarcastic too.
And best of all, awful acting.
You stay here.
But Rick!
No buts.
But, are these things awful or genius? A lot of the real-life cast of this show went on to work on the IT Crowd and other popular British comedy shows, but in this show you can see just how good their acting is, because they're all playing two characters. Here's an example to explain this better. In this show, Richard Ayoade, who you may know from the IT Crowd, plays Dean Lerner, a self-absorbed TV producer who's secretly kind of insane.
I had a cat once. I dropped a cipher on it. It was a write-off, so I stood on its head.
And then, respectively, Dean Lerner plays Thornton Reed in The Show Within a Show. But the idea is that Dean Lerner does not know how to act to save his life.
I haven't acted since. Some would say I didn't act during, but those would be unkind people. I did my best.
So Ayawati has to act as a man who cannot act.
Listen up, ladies, we've got a situation. A little lass has just cracked her nut, and if she croaks, my ass is grass.
Acting in itself is already pretty hard, and Ayawati manages to pull off the most convincing fake bad acting that I've ever seen. And then on top of that, the editing in the show tries to make it seem like they're trying to make up for his mistakes.
Wait, I have more things to say.
Go on. Sorry for the interruption.
Don't mention it. She's saying there's something supernatural going on.
If you know anything about film or TV production, you can see how much work went into making this show look bad. In order to make something look bad, you kind of have to know how to make it look good. And in this show, every single scene has something that makes it look like it was made by amateurs. A normal scene of 3 characters talking? Well, let's just fuck with the audio mixing so one character sounds like they're in a completely different room.
You're overworked as it is.
Tell me about it. It'll be a total hassle.
Look, I'll help you. I'm free most Tuesdays and my doctor's contract hasn't officially started yet.
And then there are some scenes where half of the comedy just comes from the camera. Even when the show looks like it's doing something cinematic or creative, there's always something off. The entire show is just expertly crafted to look like shit, and that is why I love it.
Yeah, that's real good. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's continue this outside in the bushes.
I don't actually think I've ever said this before on this channel, but something I'm a big fan of is absurdist comedy, and I think it's a craft that really isn't easy to pull off. If you go too far, it looks like you're trying too hard, and trying too hard is not funny. But when you find the perfect balance, it is comedy gold to me.
Who's this?
That's my son.
I didn't know you had a...
He's dead.
I honestly have watched this show so many times since I discovered it in high school, and I never get sick of it. When you binge watch this show, you start to notice reoccurring jokes, like the fact that every character seems to really hate their only female co-star.
Get this into your pretty little face. I said 5 minutes. But nothing. Women like you are the reason this chicken's late in the first place. You'll be lucky if you get any of my lovely chicken if you keep up this kind of behaviour.
There's the running gag that shows how Garth Marenghi is really bad at writing dialogue for characters that are talking on the phone.
Now get. That's the phone.
Down to weird details like how they'll say goodbye even if they're in life-threatening danger.
I'm hit, I'm down. Yep, got me in the leg. They'll be after you next. Bye.
One of my favorite jokes is near the end of episode 4 where the conflict is resolved, but the idea is that they didn't actually record a scene of the characters explaining how the conflict gets resolved. So they just have a rushed explanation over shitty B-roll.
Could you give us a detailed explanation as to why all this happened?
He was once a scientist who specialised in human evolution and had worked hard on it for many years.
The show is just so good, guys. I could seriously just upload a video of moments from the show without context, and it would be the funniest video that I ever upload.
What's this?
It's a dream catcher.
What's a dream catcher?
It's like a wind chime.
Then why don't you say wind chime?
Dag, it's Liz. She's having a vision.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
Knock it off, you two. This is a hospital.
Dear Dag, we're too late.
If you ask me, this is one of the best things that you and your friends can watch together on Halloween. And if I can turn just a few of you into Darkplace fans, then I will consider my work here done. And the best thing is that this entire show is on YouTube. You don't have to work very hard to watch it. The show is kind of notorious for being really hard to find. Like, you can't buy it on Blu-ray or DVD or really anything. So because of that, the creators don't really seem to care if you just watch it on YouTube because you can't really watch it anywhere else. The whole thing is right here for free. All you have to do is look it up. And if you end up loving it, please tell me, because knowing that you guys fell in love with one of my favorite shows would truly make my Halloween season perfect.
If you use antiperspirant, it clogs up your pores. If you clog up your pores, you're going to sweat elsewhere, on your tongue, under your ears, on the forehead, and if you block all those areas with antiperspirant, you're going to get a breath problem. And that's fact. That's scientific fact. And if you block up everything, well, then you're going to sweat inside and get cancer.